All right, ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here? Gymnosperms and our representative gymnosperm, which are pine trees. Here's some pine trees. Aren't they pretty? Yes, indeedy. What we've looked at so far this semester as far as pines are concerned are pine stems. Remember those? Yes, we do. And here's some pine leaves. This would be a 3-needle leaf with its 3 little needles that are part of the leaf. All right, but now we're going to look at the pine life cycle in terms of alternation of generations. What are we going to look at first? We're going to look at male cones. Where are male cones in this cycle? Here they are. They'd be on the pine tree at some point of the year. Male cones, and they each have little scales. And so this is part of a male cone. We're going to look at a bigger picture in just a second, but it's got little scales, and on the underside of each scale are 2 side-by-side sacs. What are the scales called? The cone scale is called, it's on the male cones are called microsporophylls. Ooh, I love these words. Microsporophyll. What does that mean? It means male spore-producing leaf. So each one of these little scales is like a leaf, and they have 2 side-by-side sacs underneath. So this would be the underneath side of one of these little male cone scales. 2 side-by-side sacs. What do we call the sacs? Microsporangia. So there's 2 microsporangia, 2 side-by-side microsporangia on the underside of each one of these microsporophylls. What develops into the microsporangia? Well, first there are some 2-end cells called what? Microsporocytes. Those divide by meiosis to form microspores, which divide by mitosis to form what? It forms the male gametophyte, commonly called a pollen grain. Say, wow, what's that all about? Well, we'll see more when we study the pencast of the life cycle. Let's look at some pictures. Here's some male cones, relatively small, relatively flimsy compared to the much bigger, much tougher female cones. And so here's the inside of one little cone scale. Here's the central axis to the left, and here's this cone scale, this male cone scale. What do we call that? A microsporophyll. Yes, we do. And I picked this one because you can see parts of both sporangia. How'd that happen, Professor? Well, if you cut it at a certain angle, you get to see both. I didn't make this slide, but whoever made it happened to catch this this particular microsporophyll at an angle showing both microsporangia. Well, what's developing inside here? Well, first of all, microsporocytes, and they divide by what? Meiosis to form microspores, which then divide by mitosis to form what? The male gametophyte, commonly called a pollen grain. And so here's what pine pollen looks like. There are some variations, but all pine pollen sort of looks like what? A Mickey Mouse hat? Yes, it does. And so, in alternation of generations term, what is pine pollen? What is any pollen? Both gymnosperm and angiosperm pollen, in alternation of generations terms, it is the male gametophyte. It's got several cells in there, and they're all haploid, and we're going to get some sperm cells out of this after a while. All right, here's a picture from your book showing the same thing. Little Mickey Mouse guys. These are actually called bladders around here. The 2 ears help them float through the air. It's all pine pollen is distributed by wind. It's all wind pollination. Okay, now the female cones. Where are they in the life cycle? We've got them coming down through here. Kind of the inner circle. And so here's a little section of a female cone. We're going to take a closer look. Here's another part of a female cone down here. Let's see what we got here. Here's kind of an early stage, kind of a pretty little stage on a, those are real baby female cones, real baby, look like little flowers almost. But here's your female cone, the hardwoody cone, and 2 seeds develop on every one of these hardwoody scales. 2 seeds. Fact is, you can still see the seeds. I believe, yeah, see those 2 seeds right there. 2 side-by-side seeds, but they didn't start off as seeds. They started off much earlier. Oh, here's a picture from your book shows two side-by-side seeds that develop on one of these hard woody scales. The term for these hard woody scales is megasporophyll. Megasporophyll. What does that mean? Female spore producing leaf. Yes, here are some actual megasporophylls, and like this, and this little bulge down here is the megasporangium. The megasporangium. So we got a megasporophyll, a female spore producing leaf, and this round part right here is the megasporangium. In fact, as you can see the opening into it, what is that called? The micropyle. And what's another term for megasporangium, kind of a common term? An ovule. This entity right here will develop, if all goes well, which it didn't for this one, will develop into what? A seed. A seed. And so there is what you have. Oh, here's another one. Very nice. What's this called out here again? This part? This is the megasporophyll. What is this part right here? The megasporangium. You can see something happening in there. Maybe that is a megasporocyte. Not real sure, but it could be. All right, now the female gametophyte. We've gone several steps further, and so meiosis of the megasporocyte produces 4 megaspores. 3 of those disintegrate, the 3 closest to the micropyle. The other megaspore, the one farthest from the micropyle, does the spore thing. It divides by what? Mitosis. And so it forms this entity that's kind of inside. It is inside the original ovule. And what is this? What does brown represent? Represents haploid. And it is the what? The female gametophyte. The female gametophyte. Wow. The female gametophyte is totally enclosed, stays that way, totally enclosed within the original sporophyte and ovule tissue, the megasporangial tissue. And what are these things? Archegonia. Archegonia develop inside the female. They are part of the female gametophyte. These are archegonia. Wow. There you have it. Let's see what this really looks like in some slides here. This is from your book. You don't have to know a lot of these terms. Micropyle is obviously what's going to come in through here, Mr. Pollen tube, and all this out here we're just going to call all this out here the megasporangium, otherwise known as the ovule. That's good enough for our purposes. We don't have to learn integument nucellus. But what is this? It's a shriveled up, dried up. Would actually fill all this space in reality. But what is this? This is the female gametophyte in here, the female gametophyte. And what is this? What are these 2 structures there? They are archegonia, and it's pointing at what it's calling an egg. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we actually see an egg there. An egg only develops at the end of a pretty long process, and this may be well before that egg develops, but this is definitely an archegonium. So what do we have here? We have the female gametophyte. What are all the cells of this entity inside here? And what are the cells of all this out here? The original ovule tissue, or the megasporangium. It is 2N. All right, let's look at some other slides of that. This is from your slide collection. We're right up here. The micropyle will be up this way someplace. And as we proceed on southward, this is still part of the original ovule tissue. This is all what chromosome number up here? 2N. As we go southward, though, we now come to the, what would this be called? And not just these structures here, but this entire entity in here. This is the, excuse me, the female gametophyte. The female gametophyte. And what are these structures right here? Archegonia. Yes, they are. 2 archegonia there in the female gametophyte. So all the cells in this area are what chromosome number? N. All the cells out this way are what chromosome number? 2N. Yes, they are. We proceed down the female gametophyte, down toward the bottom of it, and so we've come to the end of the female gametophyte. Well, the female, that whole entity we just looked at, including the female gametophyte, if all goes well, turns into a seed. And so where does the seed come in? It comes in over here. Got to have some fertilization. Got to have a zygote. Points out a zygote here. What does the zygote develop into? An embryo. It develops into an embryo. And so we have a three-part seed here. We have the outside part that we'll call the seed coat. The seed coat, where does the seed coat come from? The original ovule tissue, the megasporangium. And it says ovule contains megasporangium. I prefer to call the ovule synonymous, or make the ovule synonymous with the megasporangium. Keep things simple. And so we have a three-part seed. We have, they didn't keep their color coding going very well here because we got something in here and something out here. It doesn't show that too well, but a three-part seed that could have developed, if all goes well, into the mature sporophyte. But let's look at a seed. This is the top center. Here we're coming down. Ooh, what do you suppose we're looking at here? Oh, that must be the what? The embryo. Well, in a pine seed, what's immediately outside the embryo? The what? The female gametophyte. There's embryo to the right, female gametophyte to the left. And so, as you look at this specimen, I can't get any smaller than this. One thing you'll see that's missing from the specimen is the seed coat, the old sporophyte generation, the original ovule tissue. But what do we have here? Embryo, over here, female gametophyte. And there we have total female gametophyte. And so we showed the development of a pine seed. That's your pine life cycle, ladies and gentlemen. What some things really look like. Pine cycle in pictures. And we'll close with this one right here. Picture of pretty pine trees. And they're doing their thing. They're going through their alternation of generations life cycle. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.